Welcome to the next edition of the Pigskins and Politics podcast, the only podcast that combines two topics that go together like Bill Belichick and Presidential Medals of Freedom. Welcome to the PPP. My name is Brian McFadden. Got an awesome episode coming up for you guys today. You are listening to the football episode. Make sure to stick around for the politics chat in a couple days. Usually we'll drop that on Friday. And there is something noticeably different about this episode. It is the first episode we are actually recording video for. So it's possible you're watching this on YouTube. If you are, I apologize that we are not the most attractive gentlemen available, but we promise a good time and some good NFL. Well, of course. Well, Will is the desire of the internet as soon as everybody sees his face. Speaking of, just like Jack Easterby, who just kind of plants himself in New England and then Houston and then just tries to wreak havoc, we've got, once again, Will Southard guesting on the PPP. How's
Hello,
it going,
sir.
dude?
How are you on this fine Tuesday evening that the Washington football team dream is over? It's crushed.
You sound so prim and proper. Are you going to be nicer because you're on video tonight?
Absolutely not.
No, okay, good.
I'm probably going to be fired.
We don't want you.
So I'm going to have a lot more time to do this show next week because I'm going to be unemployed. But so there's that. But
And since I quite honestly have no experience video editing, if you do any shenanigans that I won't be able to edit out, but I still have to put the episode out there, I might fire you after a week. So. And for our special guest this week, we have Bobby Duke, we're going to continue our team deep dive. This week we're going to be doing the Packers. So Bobby is a diehard Packers fan. You can even see, if you're watching on the video, a little bit of that Green Bay G right there, like a Clark Kent pulling down the Superman shirt. But what's great about Bobby, too, is he is a fantasy football educator and analyst, and also a contributor for Last Word on NFL, which is a platform for that's specifically the NFL, but Last Word does a number of different sports all across the world. So, Bobby, welcome to the Pigskins and Politics podcast. How you doing,
Great, man. Thanks so much for having me, Brian and Will. I'm very excited to talk some divisional round, the best weekend in football, as they say. So, I'm looking forward to it.
There's no special name. So we had the Super Wildcard last weekend. This is just best weekend in football. It's always been that name.
Don't worry about COVID. It's always that, right? It's always the
always.
Elite 8.
We don't. There's no special marketing coming from the NFL on this one, but it doesn't need it. We've got some great games. We're definitely going to preview those games. We're going to talk about some NFL news. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So a couple of head coaching or coaching in general announcements. We'll get to some quick ones before we actually get to the main one that we're going to talk about here. So the Cowboys did find a defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn. So former defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks and head coach for the Atlanta Falcons will be taking over as the DC in Dallas. And Gus Bradley, also former defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks and head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars a few years back, will be taking over with John Gruden running the defense in Las Vegas. Not going to spend a lot of time on that because there is a much bigger coaching decision that we've speculated a few times on this podcast. But honestly, I was still even a little bit surprised that it happened, and that is the Eagles fired head coach Doug Pederson. Only 3 years ago, he brought them their first and only Super Bowl to the city of Philadelphia. He's been a coach there for only 5 years, and Eagles fired him yesterday. So obviously, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Bobby, we'll start with you. What did you like Doug Pederson as a coach? Did you think this was the right move? What's your analysis on this?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think like everyone else, just completely loaded kind of thought process question. I mean, I think personally, I wasn't the biggest fan. I mean, he did back up my boy Brett Favre for all those years on the Packers. I don't know if it's a little trivia for everyone, but yeah, if people don't know that, but yeah. So I mean, I think the NFL, this is kind of the showing of the NFL being a business, first, kind of shine through in true form here. I mean, I think it seemed like the owner picked Wentz and the GM versus Pederson. I mean, there was strife there. I think I read reports that end of last year, that Pederson and GM had it out a lot of different things, and even Pederson even threatened to quit at some points, but obviously that kind of went through. But it's such a weird situation because on one hand, like you just said, 3 years removed from winning a Super Bowl. Philly obviously itself is such a unique city, for the fans, and gonna have to get somebody in here that's willing to put up with some stuff because Wentz was playing lights out before he got injured, that Super Bowl run, and then obviously this year it was completely just awful. So personally, I don't know. I think I think I'm just as shocked as everyone else. But also what's up with the Hurts thing? I mean, it does seem like from this move, like you mentioned, like it seems like it might go towards Wentz again. From that aspects, and with that being the question, even Hurts being drafted in general, people were kind of like, I mean, besides Wentz's health, like interesting move, but then as bad as Wentz did, Hurts getting a chance at the end of the season if Pederson was there. I mean, I guess we kind of expected Hurts would probably do that because 2 weeks ago we were talking about where Wentz would go in a trade if people would take his contract, and now, again, it's kind of seems like they would almost need to bring someone Sean McVay whisperer type quarterback coach in, but Wentz isn't a rookie. Wentz is has been there, and now he's kind of here. It's this weird aspect thing. So again, personally, I think it's a lot of the business side of that, the GM, and him not getting completely along, from far as a coaching standpoint, I didn't like as much that Pederson didn't try to get the ball in Miles Sanders' hands as much this year, as best playmaker on the field, having a lot of issues on offense. That was always something to me, but in general, and then we talk about stats all day. I don't think they had a game that they had more than 30 points the entire year. I think I read that stat. And so I know they struggled. He was supposed to lead the offensive guru. But again, I mean, I don't think there's been a coach, I think I read in like 40 years, that's been fired this recently after a Super Bowl win. I mean, his trophies, right. His there's a statue of him outside their stadium. I mean, it's a big deal. So yeah. I don't know. Again, business.
There's also a statue of Nick Foles, and he's not there anymore either. So,
so he's sitting on warming the Bears bench up. So yeah. I think overall it's just, I think it's kind of like one of those things that's kind of expected it, but at the same time, not really. So I don't know if I expected it this soon. You think he had a free pass for another year or so, almost. So, yeah.
I mean, from what I've read, like, and you can see it, right? Like the locker room rallied around Jalen Hurts, right? Like he's more of like, how do I say this? He's that dude in Philly. You know what I mean? Like, just look at Carson Wentz. Right, and like he's kind of doofy, right? Like you're not, you know what I mean? Like he's kind of like Nick Foles.
You have a thing against redheads?
He's gingery, and it's not that. Thing. I just mean like I guess what I'm trying to say is like the team rallied around Hurts, right? Like he finally brought a spark to like a super anemic, just awful offense. And I mean, Hurts wasn't Mahomes. But I mean, he could run. He lit off some things. I mean, he was getting in a groove, right? And then
beat the Saints.
That happened. Yeah. So, and then they did the Sudfeld thing, which we've talked about. In a bunch of different ways, and you can agree with that or disagree with that or whatever. But I think what happened was, the Sudfeld thing, for whatever reason, he wanted to do that. That was not a popular locker room decision. And he kind of put his foot down, probably, right? And then the owner came in and said, "Hey, like, don't do that," right? And then, or something in that regard in terms of personnel. And what I heard was, Pederson just does not like really being told what to do. Like, he thinks it's his team. He wants to manage it like it's his team. And so he was like, "All right, well, deuces," and he was out. So I like Doug Pederson a lot. I mean, I think when I was watching them beat the this hurts. This hurts. When I was watching them beat the Patriots. I can't say it.
Beautiful. That, by the way, that's now going to be the clip I put on Instagram.
It physically pains me to say those words. But anyway, when you were watching that game, right? They made some coaching decisions in this game, and this goes true for last weekend. And I don't know, we'll probably talk about this. Coaching decisions where if you're the other team and you watch a coaching decision happen, like from your opponent, and you go, "Thank God they did that." 100% the wrong thing, right? You know what I mean? Like the Titans punt, 100% the wrong decision. And there was also the Steelers.
The Steelers punted 4th and 1. Frank Reich went for it.
I remember. I mean, I don't remember specifics, but I do remember watching that horrible sham of a game where somehow the Eagles cheated their way to a Super Bowl victory over the Patriots. But there were, I'm saying, special, there were numerous coaching decisions that Pederson made where you're like, freaking Pederson, like he made the right call, and you either have that or you don't. You know what I mean? Like you either know what to do and you do it, and Pederson's that guy, So like I think he'll perfectly land on his feet somewhere. I mean, I think he is a good coach. Carson Wentz just sucks. Like he's awful. right? So and then he lost the locker room, I think, and he just tried to, so we'll see, man. We'll see. But the Eagles, passionate fan base for sure. So
That's
you got to
an
put somebody
understatement.
in there that's going to do something.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see.
I completely agree that he's a good coach. I also agree that he will get back on his feet quickly. I know fans of other teams with head coach vacancies, such as, let's say, the Jets, who would automatically put him in like their top two choices, maybe with like Robert Saleh, of who they would like to see. And I think the time was up for him in Philly, though. I do think he's a good coach. Like I said, I think he'll see success at his next role, but it still took me by surprise, but I still think it was time, if for no other reason than how that team just completely fell apart this year. You had Wentz, your number 2 overall pick, who has shown MVP caliber talent in the past, especially his rookie season. To have him just completely collapse, well, he was on a trajectory before he got injured in that magical Foles Super Bowl over the Patriots year. I'm just going to find opportunities to remind you of that throughout the podcast. Just heads up. But so the point is, he had that talent, and he has just gotten worse and worse. Whether that's, I'm sure a lot of it's mental, but the head coach is still going to have some sort of responsibility there. So I think his time should have been up in Philadelphia. Whether they should still keep Wentz, that's a separate discussion. We'll do that on an off-season podcast. I'm definitely going to bring my buddy and Eagles fan Claudia back for that. But I do think at the end of the day, this is the right move. Let's talk about something that's not the right move, and that is the drama that's going in Houston
trading
right
Deshaun
now.
Watson.
So, yeah, we're going to talk about that. And my Dolphins are involved.
Kind of.
Crazy enough. So, we talked about this. You actually broke this. Breaking.
Listen,
like we actually break news.
I'm like a hot reporter. I just break stuff. I'm Adam Schefter. Just way less paid.
We were recording last week. And Will had noticed that, the Houston just officially hired Nick Caserio away from New England to be their new general manager, which there had been reports earlier in the day that he was the front runner. Surprised it happened quickly, but I didn't really think much of it. Nick Caserio, I think, is a fine candidate. I think it was a good hire. Was it a little rushed? Sure. But then what comes out the next day is Deshaun Watson is pissed, right? So apparently they promised him that he would have input in the general manager search, input in the head coach search, and that he would at least be involved in the process. And he claims he didn't know, like he was blind. He found out on Twitter, like the rest of the world.
That, by the way, is the problem. So I'll just interject real quick. So, I don't think it's the problem that they found their guy and they jumped on it, right? But before anybody announces anything, you call the dude and you're like, hey, man, I just want to let you know, we had to make this happen quick. Bieniemy wasn't Bieniemy is who they wanted to interview, right? Eric Bieniemy.
I don't even.
No, that's who he wanted.
That was
an interview.
He wanted a head coach, which they still haven't filled yet. But yes, they wanted to. He wanted to at least interview Eric Bieniemy, and they didn't.
Yeah, right. So you just say here's how the timeline came together. We felt we needed to hop on it. We wanted to hop on it last year. We still want you involved in the head coaching search. You're super important. Don't take this the wrong way. But here's the news, right? But finding out on Twitter, bro. Twitter.
Your franchise quarterback, superstar, top 5 QB. You've said that you think he's the best quarterback in the NFL.
I'm telling you.
He certainly has the talent to be right there. And maybe with a better surrounding cast and a better program, he could be. But to do that to your how Jack Easterby, I made the joke about you being the Jack Easterby of this podcast, and we can debate that later. But where did this guy come from? He was a team chaplain in New England, and now he's the de facto GM. He was brought on by Bill O'Brien, then he fired Bill O'Brien, and then stayed on and hired Nick Caserio quickly. And once again, I agree with you, Will. I'm not judging the hire itself. I think Caserio's time has come for him to lead a front office of a program. He doesn't really lead the front office in New England. Belichick does. I'm not discounting the hire. It's the process. How do you not involve your one true franchise star? J.J. Watt is aging. They don't have any other studs. They traded away Hopkins, your one true franchise star, who this new GM is going to build around, and you're not even going to give him a heads up, especially when you promised that you would involve him in the process. I don't even where's the logic behind
Bobby
this?
Yeah, see, I think that's the bigger thing. I think for me, it's like, I mean, I don't know personally, and I think around, I know we can't compare ourselves to, Deshaun Watson and his job and his
Speak
money
for
that he makes,
yourself.
but yeah, I mean, I know we're getting paid.
You don't know what Will makes in his side job.
I know we get paid close to that amount for doing this podcast, but I mean, I feel like
you don't.
when someone promises you at least a conversation, I mean, how many times have people been in meetings with that higher up guy who's like, yeah, I want to hear your opinion, and then you get called in there, you hear it out, and then they go ahead and do. I mean, it's not that he wanted them to do what he's do exactly what who he offered, but they didn't even bring the guy in. They didn't like Will, absolutely right. Found out on Twitter. I mean, the whole combination of everything. And it's not like we're talking about someone who is by any means like even off the field. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember Deshaun Watson's like he had that when his first paycheck he got as a rookie, he donated to like 3 cafeteria staff or something that worked at the stadium. I mean, he took that bus because for some reason he could play with a punctured lung, like but he couldn't get on a plane, so he took a bus and drove like 12 hours just to be. I mean, he's a good guy. It seems like off the field, on the field, he's there for his teammates.
He had the restaurant thing with COVID earlier, which maybe that wasn't a great decision. But then he paid for the fines of all of the players that came to the opening of his restaurant. Right. So yeah, I agree. He's an upstanding guy.
And with the history of I don't know if you guys remember with DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, okay, obviously first of all, DeAndre Hopkins left. We all know that. But even before that, back in it was like 2017, even when it was still the old Texans owner, but the whole inmates running the prison comments and stuff that they were making about when they were kneeling for the flag. It's just all of that that's when Watson was kind of first getting involved, and it just seems again like almost like the Pederson owner, GM, all that kind of mixed up stuff. It's just like not a great thing, and obviously it wouldn't make someone happy no matter how much money they're making just because of again promising.
That's the thing though, is like, so this is near and dear to your heart, freaking Aaron Rodgers, right? As much as like that dude should be like integral to the plans of the franchise, for whatever reason, they just don't like him. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and they keep him on the fringe, and they draft what was it, Love? Jordan Love, is that the guy's name? Right. They draft him, and like when they could have given Rodgers weapons, like say what you want, like Rodgers is freaking elite. You know what I mean? And I don't.
Well, he's going to be
the MVP. Don't talk
MVP.
about the Brady Rodgers GOAT thing. That's already been settled a long time ago. We already know about that. But Rodgers is elite.
Just me and you.
So it's similar. You wonder, right? You think about it, right? And like, why is this the case, right? A couple arguments I can see. Number one, I'm an owner. I'm paying you millions of dollars, like in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars, to go out on the field and work for me, right? And I mean, really, that's what it is. I'm the owner. You work for me, except in the case of the Packers, where it's like weird freaking cheese shareholder, crazy, stupid stuff. But anyway, and like you go do your job, right? And that's it. You don't need to get input. Like you're an employee, blah, 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 right? That could be one thing. But the other thing is like, what do coaches try to preach, right? We're a family. We're all in this together. Like, look out for everybody, blah, blah, blah. And when you have, like, you're trying to do that, that's a team atmosphere, right? And you treat somebody like they're just an employee, like, it doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter if, like, it's a Burger King crew that makes minimum wage, right? You disrespect somebody like that. You know what I mean? Like, if you got a valuable player, like Brian said, the face of your franchise, doesn't matter if they're an employee, man. If you're going to pitch that team thing, then he has a right. I think he has an absolute right. And moreover, I would like to see him demanded to get traded because he's just going to waste his career in Houston. They have no weapons, bro. Like, they brought in freaking David Johnson for DeAndre Hopkins. Like, what are you doing? Like, you have nothing. And you're right. Like, J.J. Watt is a crutch with pads on. You know what I mean? Like, he's just, I mean, sorry,
Future Hall of Famer, but yeah, he's
so. I mean, they have no.
Here's my 2 points on that, and then I do want to talk about this whole trade situation. So the first point is the Packers, at least, like Matt LaFleur, had to meet with Aaron Rodgers, call it an interview, call it a consultation. But I do believe that Aaron Rodgers at least had some sort of say before they hired him. They understand that he's elite, and who knows, drafting Jordan Love in the first round. Maybe they knew what they were doing, because look at what Rodgers did as a result. They're like, nobody takes a slight.
Oh my God!
And
did you just say we negatively motivated Aaron Rodgers by drafting Jordan Love?
I'm saying I'm not going to rule it out of a possibility in the universe. But here's my second point, specifically with the Texans. So this was not really a Cal McNair thing. Cal McNair, the owner of the Texans, this was a Jack Easterby thing. I don't think McNair necessarily gave it too much thought. I think Easterby was running the show. He wanted his buddy Nick Caserio from New England. He had no intention of hiring anyone else. This was all just a dog and pony show. He's not going to consult the quarterback. This is just a boys club. And once again, that's not discounting the hire itself. I think Caserio is a talented guy. I think he'll do a good job. But I think Easterby might end up being the problem here. So let's talk about this whole trade situation.
Brian just compared like drafting Jordan Love by the Packers to like when you're getting kind of fat as a guy and your wife just goes out and makes friends with a bunch of like really hot dudes and just hopes to inspire you to get back into the gym. Like that's what you just...
And then that guy goes and like
then you
buys
go just become an Iron Man.
Island vacation.
I'm obviously an Iron Man. Look at me. It works
whatever.
really well.
It's worked well for Will.
That's Jordan Love, the attractive wife friend.
All I'm saying is Aaron Rodgers is an All-Pro and is in all likelihood would be the MVP.
Trade scenario. Let's do it.
Make of that what you will. So let's talk about the trade scenario. So a report came out from Chris Mortensen of ESPN that Watson, of course, this is manifested over a few days. Watson very angry. He's not returning. They're trying to reach out to him. He's not answering their texts, not answering their calls or their voicemails. And then Mortensen leaks that Watson would consider a trade specifically to the Miami Dolphins. So this was Saturday morning or Sunday morning. And so NFL Twitter is just going nuts. Dolphins Twitter in particular. As a Dolphins fan, obviously I follow a lot of Dolphins fans. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, we'll give them Tua and the number 3 pick, and we'll get Deshaun Watson. I'll share my thoughts on this first, obviously, because I'm a Dolphins fan. Yeah, Watson's elite. There's no questioning that. I don't think Brian Flores and Chris Greer would go for this. I think they've got the draft capital. I think they believe in Tua, and they understand that they just need to get him weapons, and they need to get him a little bit better pass protection. And why bring on that contract? You got a rookie. Everybody says, the key to winning, for the most part, unless you have a Rodgers type or a Mahomes type,
you
is
do.
To get a quarterback.
You get a Mahomes type. This is a Mahomes type. We just talked about this. So I was just about to ask you,
fair
do
enough.
You do this if it's Patrick Mahomes? Let's not talk about $1 billion because that's how much he's worth. But do you do it if it's Mahomes?
I was about to say yes, but then I'm like, you know what? Deshaun Watson it's not like he's we said it last week. It's not a chasm between the two of them. Okay, now you made me think about it.
But let's pause before you think about that. Why do you think Deshaun Watson wants to go to the Dolphins?
Well, it's clear that he's been vocal about
Flores
working. He wanted them to. He wanted them to work to interview Bieniemy because he's a minority candidate. He's a black head coach candidate. Brian Flores is a black head coach. Chris Greer is a black GM. He has seen the kind of program they've built there. They took one of the worst rosters in recent memory last year and won 5 games and knocked off the Patriots and put the Chiefs in the bye and rewrote history. That was last year. Whatever. I'm going to cherish that. And then this year, he takes a team that is expected to improve, but he takes them on the brink of the playoffs at 10-6, and even until Week 15 actually had a shot at the AFC East. It is clear from any outsider's perspective that they're building a championship program. He's used to a program that is a freaking mess from top to bottom. He's used to a head coach that'll just trade away whoever he wants because he doesn't get along with them, and Bill O'Brien. He's used to an organization that trades multiple draft picks for Laramie Tunsil, who's a solid left tackle, but what do we get in return? We get the number 3 overall pick. So he sees the train wreck that is the Houston Texans organization, and then he sees the sparkling example of how an organization should be built in Miami, and he sees it's done by a black GM and a black head coach, and that seems like a good...
In Miami?
Like, what do you mean?
You get to live in Miami. Like, that's a thing. Right?
That's
like,
true.
What's in Houston? Like, freaking oil derricks and sand. Like, you know what I mean?
Cowboys
and
horses. And, I don't know. What is a Texan anyway? It's just a person who lives in Texas.
I think so.
I've never really given it much thought. The Oilers made more sense, right? Because they work on oil. Anyway, I digress. Bobby, what's your thought on this? Because me and Will are just going back.
I mean, and the same thing. I mean, I agree with all that. I mean, but the other side of that is, I guess if you're the Texans and you're like, okay, let's rebuild everything and we'll get, because obviously because while I was reading, same thing with Chris Mortensen and hearing all these reports, like what would they have to get to get rid of Watson? They were taking not only Tua, but then first rounds, like second rounds, like for not just this year. I mean, they were so I'm like, okay, giving up the draft picks, like
three
like
first rounds is what I heard.
Yeah, and but like you said, well, like I mean, I feel like if it's Miami, like I get it, but like, and they loaded up on picks, and so I mean, only ones that have some to spare, but like, what are you trying to get picks for? I mean, if Watson goes to a team with that defense, with if anything, I mean, yeah, Tua is, but I'm thinking more the opposite. I'm thinking more like, I guess if you want to start rebuilding Texans, but what are you trying to rebuild if you have a 25-year-old quarterback you just paid a lot of money to, and you already got rid of the only good offensive weapon outside of him? Like, well, I mean, like, try building around him, not getting rid of him to get Tua, who obviously he's that's another conversation, but like, what, it just seems like it seems Brian, I'm not gonna get into that, but it just seems like a weird thing. And overall, and I think Adam Schefter reported this, that the no trade clause thing that's there, that it was confusing to me and to I bet a lot of people. But what I heard, what Adam Schefter said, was that it's not that he can't be traded. It's not that he can't take a trade. It's that they can't just trade him for no reason. It's that if he wants, I want to go to Miami, yeah, like somebody can, they agree.
Yeah, that was what
Brady
wanted
has that
in the contract. That was his. So
right, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, I think overall, it's like I don't know. But the Texans are doing all kinds of nut job things, but that doesn't seem like, it would seem like a weird move for me from that part on the other side of that.
I mean, if you're Deshaun though, like Will Fuller goes down, you got Brandon Cooks, who
he got suspended. He didn't go down.
Well, he went down, right?
You know what I mean? For 6 weeks.
But he always does go down. He just happened to go down a different way.
And he is a free agent. Yeah.
He does.
Dude, and then what's his name? Hopkins is out in Arizona having fun, like loving life with Kyler Murray, right? Like that's got to make Deshaun angry, because they were boys. You know what I mean? And they still are. Hopkins cheered for Watson on the all kinds of dude. So Deshaun's looking out, you know what I mean? Like he's like Will Smith looking around in the empty room gif, you know what I mean? Like from the thing where they all move out. He's like, "What's up, bro?" The same way same one that Minkah Fitzpatrick posted when the Dolphins traded every single decent player they had away. Minkah posted the same thing. I think it was Minkah, yeah, and then they traded him to
Pittsburgh.
So
here's the other scenario.
It's worked out for Miami.
What happens?
That's the difference. Is when you have a strong organization. At the time, it's like, wow, Miami's getting rid of everybody. They got rid of Tunsil. They got rid of Fitzpatrick. They got rid of Jarvis Landry prior to that. But look, they've been able to build something. Whereas Houston, they got rid of their talent, and they're the third worst team.
The thing with rebuilding is you have to know what you're doing. You can't just trade away everybody that's good and be like, well, we got a bunch of picks. Boo. All right, now we're going to be good because we're going to pick a lot of people. And then you just make crappy picks, and then you just continue to suck.
And they're already rebuilding, right? I mean, they literally have their quarterback, and they should build around him. Not let's get rid of him and start let's burn everything down. I mean,
the Dolphins absolutely fleeced the Texans for that Tunsil thing with that. The number 3 pick.
The fact that we can finish at 10-6, I said this last week, and get a third overall pick. That's I love it. And what we're gonna have
before we talk about, I guess just real quick, you heard about what Devonta Smith did in the national championship game, right?
It was absurd. What he had over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first.
You don't think they take him at number 3 for Tua?
For Tua, no brainer. That's what I mean. You've got the ability to pair Tua with an elite wide receiver prospect who he used to throw to from Alabama. Right. The rapport's already there. Do you really want now? If the deal's too good to pass up for Watson, fine. He's an amazing quarterback. He's already proven himself. But if they're 3 first, are you kidding? Greer, they're not going to do something like that. They've got a young quarterback who has shown some promise. Is he there yet? No, but most rookies aren't. Not everybody's Justin Herbert. But you've got these multiple high draft picks that you could turn into pieces for him, and you can build it without bringing on this high contract. I would rather them, unless the deal is like an offer they can't refuse, like Godfather style, I would rather them just keep their picks, draft Devonta Smith third. We'll have plenty of time to talk about the draft leading up in the off season. But I do want to hear from Bobby about your Green Bay Packers. So tell us a little bit about first the history of your Packer fandom. What made you a Packer fan? Obviously, you and I have spoken. You live in North Carolina.
Right, yeah.
I don't know how many cheeseheads there are in North Carolina.
We're well traveled, but yeah.
So how'd you get to be a Packer fan?
Yeah, sure. So when I was growing up when I was a kid, I actually remember this. It was Super Bowl, I think it was 29, which nothing to do with the Packers. It was the Chargers and the 49ers, I believe. But I was a little kid. It was like the first football game I watched with my dad, and I was like, this is football. This is what you watch. Like, remind me next season when it's on. I'm like, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And so then, back then, no DirecTV. The Panthers, who were, the team in the Carolinas, wasn't a team back then. So they just kind of threw whoever. I mean, a lot of Redskins back then, a lot of Falcons, and whatever.
Falcons,
but
yep.
I saw a lot of, the primetime type games. Saw Favre, got really into, liked him, heard his story. I had those little books when I was a kid where you get his football cards, like whatever it is, and that just really, it sold me. And I just, ever since for 25, 30 years, it's been that way, luckily enough to have Favre followed by Rodgers. So it's been my, my MO. And actually, to top that off, finally, after all these years, I was able to go to Lambeau for a game last year, which was, even if you're not a Packers fan, it's unbelievable. I went with my friend who's a Panthers fan. He lives in North Carolina too. And, he said it was like the best game, even though the Panthers lost, but it was snowing, it was November evening. It was just kind of like one of those bucket list type things. So, but that's kind of how it started.
That's classic NFL. Like that, when you think about like the 50s and 60s, obviously the Packers are one of the oldest organizations. That's what you think about. That is football tradition right there.
Absolutely. So that's kind of how it all stemmed into this.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you are the first guest we've had on for these deep dives that's representing a team that's very successful right now. So we've had Eagles, 49ers, Raiders, Broncos, Lions. All of these guys came on and they talked about ways their team yeah, essentially, right? So they came on and what moves do you make? Who do you draft? How do you fix this team? What are the problems? So yours is going to be a little different. So I'm asking you how the state of the Green Bay Packers, while you're the number 1 seed in the NFC, you've got an all-pro quarterback who is the presumptive NFL MVP. But obviously, what's your outlook for the playoffs? How do you like this team? Like last year, they were 13-3, and they just got clobbered by the 49ers in the NFC Championship. How do you like this team compared to last year? And where are some areas of improvement in the offseason that you'd like to see the Packers address?
Yeah, obviously, again, like definitely, so I'm trying to get my thoughts together. But yeah, it's one of those things you think about, like you said, last year, absolutely. Even going back to this year against, I know, Will, you're a big Brady fan, going against, how they shut us down week 6. That was very similar, like, made me feel weird like it did in the championship game last year. But, same record, 13-3, but it almost feels like it's a completely different world, though. I think anyone would agree just watching Aaron Rodgers out there, and there we say, oh, it looks like he's having fun, but that's what it is. Last year, again, 13-3, defense was killer with, the free agent picks up with the Smith brothers, with Adrian Amos back there, with some of the draft picks we had over the years, Jair Alexander and that stuff. And obviously Aaron Jones exploding onto the scene last year. And it was like, everybody was like, okay, Rodgers doesn't need to do that. He doesn't have to. But it did seem like when it came time, it was almost like, he did, but I don't want to, obviously I'm not going to call him a game manager, but it was closer to that than what we're used to seeing. And what I'm, especially being a fan all these years, you're just like watching every game. I'm like, okay, but we're there, but getting crushed by the Niners and twice that year, during the regular season, and then exactly the same thing happening in the playoffs. It was just like, okay, but so then obviously, and we'll talk about Jordan Love a little bit in a minute, but with that all happening, and then I think a big part of that was, were we seeing the end of Rodgers? Are we seeing like the descent, like people thought maybe we were seeing the descent of Brady at the end of the last couple of years in New England or whatever, but obviously neither one of those is true. And, definitely this year with the way Rodgers is playing lights out. So yeah, in regards to this year, I think the difference is that it's our defense is definitely, I don't think it's as strong, but it definitely has improved as the years gone on. With some of the things, I think we were really, really poor on the run, and that showed middle of the season, especially when Dalvin Cook just cooked us for sure. Like it was like week 7, 8, something like that. But, I think we've steadily improved there, which was a big weakness in our sense to kind of be in the top half, at least on defense, but with pressure and stuff like that. And then offense, obviously we can talk all day, about how, we don't even need to with how that looks, but obviously the difference maker in that sense is the passing game. Aaron Jones is everybody always see the hashtag free Aaron Jones because you got Jamal Williams. And the thing I'm the most excited about for the playoffs in particular is absolutely no home field advantage this entire year, obviously for anyone, in any game. But, and I've always been, I think everyone's like, oh, it's cold. Like, we get that. And, well, I've seen in my lifetime, especially, like, Favre go down to Lambeau for the first time in, like, 40 years. I've seen Rodgers do it and, and losing big games in the same. So it doesn't seem like it's affecting people as much. But I think this year's different, man. Just the way people are, the restrictions with travel, the way that people, I mean, I know we'll talk about the Browns a little bit later, but, with the lack of practice and the ability to be able to do some of these things. But every single NFC team is in Florida, is in California, plays in a dome, like you name it. I mean, it might not make or break it 100%, but tell you what, if you watch that Titans game, the Titans aren't the best team in the world, but they're in the playoffs. They won their division, and it took them a good, 25 minutes to get warm, if you will. And it showed. And it was something that if you watch that game, it was like the Week 16 Sunday night game, all about Devontae Adams, like getting his feet, just doing that, and the other receivers, the other corners, the other running backs, even Derrick Henry, you just couldn't do stuff like that. So the big thing that I noticed in that game, which they didn't do much of Week 17, but I'm hoping can really help in the future of the playoffs, not even in the future of our team, is A.J. Dillon. I know Aaron Jones is obviously the man, and he's got like kind of everything there. Jamal Williams, they really like. He seems like a cool guy, and he's a good compliment. But if they can get A.J. Dillon, even if it's 5 or 6 or 7 touches, kind of those big games are running out the clock there. I mean, that's the most complete running game like I've ever seen with the Packers. So that excites me. And outside of, the standard, obviously Rodgers, being a bad man and playing lights out, and Devontae Adams having, one of the best seasons ever for a receiver. Can't hurt that. I think the biggest thing that is going to make the difference, and, you asked me what my opinion was on my team, and I'm one of those people who's more like, okay, we got to do this, we got to do good, I got to be hopeful, but at the same time, yeah, Super Bowl. I mean, it's got to be that, for me, and it's like LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers are looking like Andy Reid and Mahomes, are looking like Sean Payton and Drew Brees, like now, but also like even more in their prime. I mean, that's a connection that happened so quickly and so nicely, and last year it was lacking a little bit, but the thing that really needs to happen to get them to overcome even the Rams' #1 defense this weekend, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. But, and after that, if they win, playing either the Saints or the Bucks, but they got to get those supplemental people being a little bit more consistent, people like MVS and Allen Lazard. I mean, you watched the Saints game when Drew Brees had 7 completions to that guy Harris, who's their kick returner. I think the guy had like 15 or 20 catches all year. I mean, that's the kind of teams that go to Super Bowls. I mean, those are the kind of teams that can get everyone involved, and that's something that Rodgers, has been doing this year. I mean, talk about Robert Tonyan. I mean, it's became like one of those things. Devontae Adams was hurt for 2.5 games, and Tonyan had 5 touchdowns in that span. I mean, that's something that you just can't.
I think it's
Tonyan? He's going to find stuff.
Tonyan.
Yes,
Rhymes with Funyun.
I was going to let it slide.
Bobby Tonyan. But all that trending in general for me, I mean, I think, like I said, the home field advantage on top of all that's what excites me in regards to, being able to do it. I mean, I know some of those games, like the 13-3, the same as last year, but, as far as I think that's what we've been doing better at this year in regards to, being able to, especially on the stretch, winning like 6 or 7 in a row, I think to end it too. I mean, that's big. Momentum is a huge deal, and you see that in the NFL every year, whether it's a 6 seed team kind of making their way in, or it's #1 seed, which has, been more of the case for the bye week teams the last couple of years. But, you can't lose, even if they're easy games, you got to keep doing that. And we've been putting together the games like we should be towards the end here. So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
And I agree that there isn't a lot of home field advantage, but the one home field advantage is going to be weather. And there are 2 teams left, Buffalo and Green Bay, where I think the weather can make a difference. You get Drew Brees in there, who's a dome quarterback, and his arm strength isn't what it used to be. You get Brady in there, who's a warm weather quarterback now, doesn't play in New England anymore. His blood has thinned living in Tampa. I think that can make a difference. You don't have the crowd noise, yes, but if there is any advantage you can get, and any advantage in the NFL is a good one. So yeah, I agree with you. I do think playing at Lambeau and having that home field advantage in this year, where home field advantage isn't really a big deal, can be an edge for them. Where would you like to see? Obviously you guys are going to have a low draft pick. What do you think they should address in the draft, being that they're obviously 13-3, they won the NFC, they're one of the strongest teams in the NFL, but what do you think they still need to address?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone would agree it's what they should have addressed last season, as far as just some help for Rodgers in the receiving situation. I mean, I don't think it's all over the place, but it seemed like, I mean, obviously, and we can talk about Jordan Love too, but especially because of how deep this wide receiver draft was. I mean, not even in the first round, I don't even care if it's then, but like we didn't even get a receiver. It was just one of those things that so many available now, it's not like we're getting Devontae Smith. I mean, but to get some supplemental people out there, that's what I would like. I mean, I think offensive line wise, I know we lost Bakhtiari for the rest of the year, and it could be into next year because of the injury it was. But our line's been very versatile over the year, and we've had some injuries, but we have a lot of Pro Bowl and All Pro, and just generally good. And with Rodgers being able to get the ball out of there, I think it's okay. I think that's kind of what I would like to see first. I mean, I think the last 3 or 4 years they've gotten, Jair Alexander, obviously, shutdown corner, Kevin King, Darnell Savage, these guys who are really taking a step up and making that secondary stronger. Seems like every game they're getting a little bit better, which is good. And, I think they will shoot for some of that stuff here too. They always like to get defenders, especially since Ted Thompson, our old GM, kind of stepped down about 2 years ago. That's kind of what we shot for more. But I would also like to, on top of that, kind of like we lost Blake Martinez to free agency last year, and he was kind of, 130, 150 tackles a year, like for, that big time guy. And we have, play 3-4, so there's not like a true middle linebacker, and the guys that I think it was Kirksey and Chris Barnes, they've stepped in and done a good job, and both missed some time for injuries and COVID stuff. But I'd like to see kind of more of a playmaker maybe in there too, because we already have Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith on the outside kind of knocking that down. But, with Kenny Clark in the middle, depth is always helpful on the defensive line too. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I think the big thing is just a little bit of, and not going to, if Devontae Adams, we were able to win games and do stuff because Aaron Rodgers, but I think we need at least somebody, at least get something going for even if it's the future, I know, and we generally do that, right? All the previous receivers, Jordy Nelson, Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, these guys we drafted, these are things that I know that under a different reign, but these are something the Packers are good at in-house doing. So Devontae Adams obviously too. So hopefully we can kind of steer towards that a little bit more. Again, not necessarily in the first round, but that would be nice. But also,
and it is a deep receiver class. So this is another deep receiver class. So you can get talent at the end of the first round into the second round.
And then looking at I think the big offseason thing too is with the running back situation. So we just talked about Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. They were both drafted the same year. Jamal Williams actually the round before him, but both their contracts are up, so are ready to be renewed. And so the fact that Aaron Jones was kind of talking a little bit, but they didn't do it. So he's one of the bigger free agents, possible free agents they're talking about this offseason. So, personally, I would obviously love to have Aaron Jones back. I don't 100% know the salary cap situation and everything like that, but and Jamal Williams, I don't know if they're looking for Jamal Williams, AJ Dillon, complementing each other, but obviously Aaron Jones kind of has all of it there. He doesn't have the bigness of AJ Dillon, but AJ Dillon's rookie, he could be there for a couple of years, not a big deal. So hopefully we can re-sign him. But I think, that's kind of what I think of there. But as far as Jordan Love goes, though, that's something that's one of the more interesting. Obviously we don't talk about the draft and how that all panned out and how they traded up for him and all that stuff. But I kind of see that now that we've seen what Aaron Rodgers decided to do this year, more of a Jimmy Garoppolo type thing. I think that's kind of what they drafted him for in there when Brady kind of finally found his time and it seemed like he was winding down. And
they did it with Rodgers. Right. They did it with Rodgers himself when they had Favre.
But at the same time, but it's one of those things can you see in the NFL nowadays people sitting behind people that long? I actually saw a stat. I looked this stat up because I was interested in this today, but I think they said that he's the first quarterback taken in the first round in 15 years that didn't see the field for a single play. For a single play. And honestly, I don't remember seeing him dress for a single game. He wasn't even the backup.
No, he was inactive for much of the season.
In that sense, sure, if Rodgers, I'm gonna say God forbid for my Packers, but went down or something, that's one time you might see him. But I can't see him wanting to sit there for that long because Rodgers has adamantly been like Brady saying I'm going to play for this long. Although Rodgers has been a lot more injured over the years, and but obviously when they dropped him.
Yeah, Pilates and avocado toast. It just gets your ligaments all injury proof.
It does.
That's the secret. You've learned the secret to
life on Pilates and avocado
Congratulations,
toast.
Listeners. Pilates and avocado toast.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that's it's nice to be able to break down your team when your team is 13-3. So just coming off a bye and you have Aaron Rodgers.
One thing I need to know as a ardent Packers fan that you are is, and hopefully you'll know what I'm talking about, and if you don't, it will be pretty telling. But have you seen the Snapchat? Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Never mind then.
I have no idea.
The listeners will know what I'm talking about. The Super Bowl
you can't bring it up.
The Super Bowl Aaron Rodgers Snapchat from when he was dating Olivia Munn. You guys don't know what I'm talking about? Apparently,
no, please share.
This is a PG-13 podcast, but apparently they he Snapchatted his friend like a picture of him and Olivia Munn in a compromising position, and the tagline was "The Super Bowl can suck it." And it's and if you haven't seen that,
creativity.
I don't know what to tell you. Like it's just
I guess not.
Go to the internet and find it. It's if you're a Packers fan, you will need to watch. You'll need to see that.
I approve of Olivia Munn.
I mean, right?
By the way.
You will.
We do.
Nice choice.
I approve, but we also do know he does play worse when he has a girlfriend. So I feel
as does everybody. As does Russell Wilson. This is the thing. Everyone's like, "What the hell happened to Russell Wilson?" I'll tell you.
He's been married.
Has a kid,
yeah,
right?
but I mean, like, did you see like some of the stuff? Like, no, he is.
Yeah, the music video
firmly on team sex, and it like
I did see that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a guest host on Jeopardy. It just came out today for Alex Trebek, passed away, and they have a couple guest hosts.
Right.
So he was on Jeopardy one time. I don't, it was a couple years ago, but that's the latest, greatest Rodgers news. I guess that's his off-season tasks.
Yeah.
Hopefully after he brings home the balloon party.
So I want to throw in one fun fact, and then we'll get into talking about the wildcard games. So we mentioned that David Bakhtiari, all-pro left tackle, did get injured and is out for the rest of the season. So the Packers brought in Jared Veldheer, who just played for the Colts this weekend and will be the first player to ever play for two different teams in the same playoffs. So that's interesting. He may or may not make an impact, but yeah, dude loses with one team. He's like, hey, sign me. I'll play for you too. NFL, gotta love it. All right, so let's go in and talk about, we're going to recap the wild card games, get each of your thoughts on kind of what went down, and then we'll spend a little more time previewing the divisional round. So we're going to start with, first of all, I went 5-1 in my picks, only missed one game, and that was I picked Seattle to beat the Rams, and the Rams ended up taking that, which I was a tough pick and could have gone either way, but 5-1. So the first game, one of the better ones overall was the Indianapolis Colts at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills won 27-24. I think most people, and myself included, and Will, thought this was going to be more of a blowout than it was. And Indianapolis actually had the lead for the majority of the first half. And then there was the Frank Reich. They went for it on fourth down, on 4th and goal, where it was like 2 minutes left. They could have gone up 13-7 with the field goal. Instead, Buffalo drives right down, takes the lead, and never relinquished it after that. But that being said, they had opportunities. Interesting stat, Indianapolis crossed midfield on every single one of their drives. So they were able to move the ball pretty much at will against this Bills defense. They did only get 2 out of 5 red zone touchdowns, so they missed some opportunities. Rivers had some off-target throws in key moments, but they had an opportunity. That being said, the Bills did end up being triumphant. Josh Allen had another just studly game. Some of the plays he made. He had one where he was about to rush it in and then like backpedaled and started to fall down and then threw a touchdown pass to Dawson Knox. It was sick.
Pass, like...
yeah, like a jump pass. It didn't even look like that was meant to be. It looked like he was supposed to run it. He didn't get to go anywhere, so he just lobbed it up backyard football style and threw a touchdown. Any thoughts on this game, Will? I mean, I know that the result was what we thought it, but it was closer than we expected.
Yeah, I mean, at Rivers. I mean, I think the
yeah.
Buffalo's a weird team. I mean, Jonathan Taylor did his thing. You know what I mean? And like I said, Josh Allen is a little can be Josh Allen-y at times. I think the upcoming game at Baltimore, which I know we'll talk about, is going to be it's going to be a tough one for old Josh. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not too surprised that this was close. I'd be surprised if Indy won, for sure, but I wasn't surprised at the overall result. I mean, John Brown had a goose egg, which made me kind of sad, because
Stephon Diggs went off over 100 yards.
Indy's pass defense has just fell apart as the year went on. I mean, you open the season, I think they had the number 1 pass defense for many weeks, and then they just I don't know what happened to them. So,
well, at least against Buffalo, they were playing a lot of zone, a lot of soft zone, and Josh Allen, give him credit for being able to go through his progressions. Obviously, having Stephon Diggs helps a lot, but he was able to find the holes in the zone, and he was just throwing dime after dime.
Give Josh Allen credit for being able to go through his progressions.
Hey, but that was the big knock on him. I've not been the biggest Josh Allen fan, but I'm sold now. I have seen enough from him. It's now that he's won his first playoff game, just like Lamar. We'll talk about that in a little bit. He's an elite quarterback. I'm going to say it. He's playing week in and week out like an elite quarterback. What do you think of this game, Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both you guys. Will, you said it. I mean, Rivers, and Josh Allen is, Josh Allen's been playing special ball, especially with that connection he developed very quickly with Diggs. Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to it than that in regards to, offensively. I mean, like you said, I think I 100% agree. Better game than expected, closer than expected. I mean, I knew the Colts were going to put up a fight, but, it came down to the wire, and that crazy like when Josh Allen fumbled it like 35 yards back or whatever, and then
in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth.
So that was close. But it's they got the job done, and they got, like you said, they get to play at home, and so they played that game at home too. So yeah, it was a fun way to start the weekend.
They got the job done at the end of the day.
Hang on.
LA Rams.
When Josh Allen came into the league, you know who I pictured him being a couple years down the road? Daniel Jones. Like, who Daniel Jones is exactly who I pictured Josh Allen. Like, somebody who's just kind of there. Like, he's not really that good. He kind of sort of sucks, but like he's
trips himself. But he's on
still
long
the oh my god, man. But he's still like the franchise. You know what I mean? Like, that's who I thought Josh Allen was going to be. But credit to Josh Allen, he is
and
fun.
In fairness, that's how he was in his rookie year and a little bit last year. But it's really the progression. Like, he was a true developmental prospect who has actually developed. A lot of them don't.
Right.
So, I'm sold. The LA Rams, as I mentioned, beat the Seattle Seahawks 30-20. The third time they played this year, as they are division rivals. This was an ugly game. Like, ugly. Like, Russell Wilson, maybe it's the music videos with Sierra. Maybe it's... I went on another podcast earlier today, and they think that once he trademarked the hashtag, let Russ cook, ever since he trademarked the hashtag, his play went way down. So, but credit to the Rams defense. So, I think Seattle had less than 300 total yards. Russell Wilson was like 11 for 27. Darius Williams with a sick pick six when he jumped in front of a bubble screen and just was like, thanks, Russ. I'll take the cooking and I'm going to go, take it home. But yeah, that was the story of the game. On the offense, Cam Akers has really come on. He's been super strong. He had like 180 total yards from scrimmage.
Like, I know you want to because he's a Florida State guy.
You can't say he's not been good at the end of the year.
It's hard to talking about Florida State guys.
He is the new Gurley for that team. If they're good, they're good. Just like you said. Hey, once they get to the NFL, they're fair game,
enough.
Right?
He has come on quite a
well. Your own words. So Akers, I think that this McVay offense really operates well when they have a stud running back. You look at how they were 2 years ago with Gurley versus the Gurley from 2019 was not the same Gurley who they got rid of and traded him to Atlanta. But now that Akers came on at the end of the season, that's when they've really played well. But they still have a quarterback issue. Besides all the issues Goff normally has, Goff didn't start this game. John Wolford did, and then he took a brutal hit helmet to helmet from Jamal Adams. They ended up having to go in the hospital. Apparently it's a stinger. He's okay. There's a question about who's going to start.
Took a stinger to the dome.
You've got two quarterback choices in this game. We'll do the preview. I'm not going to jump into that yet because we're going to preview that game when they go up against Green Bay. But we'll give them credit for this game. The defense won this game because the offense, they had the pick six. Jared Goff had his broken thumb. He's trying to throw with like 3 pins in his thumb. The ball didn't look right coming out of his hand, but they completely harassed Russell Wilson. Brian Schottenheimer was resigned today, or maybe he was fired behind the scenes. So the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks is now gone. Seattle definitely has some work to do. They definitely looked weak for a 12-4 team. Any thoughts on this game from either of you guys? It was a pretty boring game.
Didn't even want to watch this game, man.
Yeah, you said Russell Wilson pressured, sacked, frustrated. I think that's kind of like you said, described it, along with Seattle not really being able to stop that run, kind of the problem all year. So, for sure.
Yeah, that's what it came down to. So let's talk about your beloved Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a game that was closer than everybody thought and that played out differently than everyone thought. So we all know that the Washington football team, so Tampa Bay won 31-23. We all know the Washington football team has an elite defense. I'd say a top 5 defense in the NFL with a putrid offense, especially when they had Dwayne Haskins, him of the stripper lore, and even Alex Smith. As great of a story as he was, he's not going to light an offense up. So they expected the defense to give trouble to Tampa Bay, but for the offense, for Washington to just not be able to put any points up. I think you even said that exactly, Will. Like, it doesn't matter what they do on defense, they're not going to score any points. So it ended up being the opposite. This was one of the most entertaining games of that Saturday because of Taylor Heineke. Like, he was fun.
It was annoyingly fun to watch. It's just like, bro, like know your role. Like stop it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just stop. But you know what's funny is, and I know this is not the politics portion of the podcast, but it is the politics and pigskins podcast. Did you see how he got like straight canceled after that game for being like a huge Trump supporter?
Yeah, they found out he was a Trump supporter the next day, so he went from hero of NFL Twitter to pariah in like.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, the thing was like I said, we said you have to get to Brady. You gotta pressure him without blitzing him. You got to be able to get to him. They couldn't, Leonard Fournette had a great game. Great game. Catching the ball, which is not normally what you'd think of for Leonard Fournette, right? You think like 2.5 yards per carry and just like complaints. but he had a good game, man. He had a really good game, and he'll need to do that. See, that's the well, I know. Damn, I want to preview the games. So we're just talking about the other game. They couldn't really get to him. They couldn't. I mean, the thing is for Tampa is Antonio Brown now knows this offense. You know what I mean? And
it's scary.
Now you legit, like before, you didn't really have to deal with Godwin Evans and Antonio Brown. Like Antonio Brown would kind of fill the Scotty Miller role a little bit, right? They'd bring him in and then but now they're running like bubble screens to him. They're like handing him the ball. Like they're taking deep shots. That's the other thing. Brady's deep balls were connecting again.
They are.
And when they can put it together, man, they're dirty. The thing is, just like that, I mean, they have no pass defense. So we will see this weekend. I am not confident.
We'll get to the previews. I'm eager to get to the previews as well. Yeah. Any thoughts on this game?
I was going to say exactly the same thing about that pass defense when switch it over to the Bucs. But yeah, we'll talk about that more when he goes up. I mean, because that was the difference, right? I mean, it's not like Antonio Gibson did anything. I mean, if like Will said, you expected the defense to get to Brady if anything was going to happen. They didn't. And then you expect, I know the Bucs run defense is very good and they proved that, but Heineke had 300 yards, that touchdown run. We can say whatever we want about Heineke as a future player, but he was like boxing for a second, and then he just, that was incredible. But 300 plus yards through the air, and not like he did anything in the first quarter. So that's a tell.
He threw some dimes. The one touchdown pass he hit was sick. He threw it right as Sims made his break, threw it right into the corner of the end zone. Sims did the toe drag. I mean, that was next level stuff. This is a guy who
hot take.
He wasn't throwing it to McLaurin. He was throwing it to
hot take.
Hot take is Taylor Heineke greater than symbol Alex Smith. I think he's the best option they have. I think that
right
as
now,
much 100%. As he loves Trump, I think that you have to bring him back. I mean, here's the thing. What is the? I know we're going to talk about this either. I feel I have a lot of friends. So I just moved from Richmond, very DC area, basically. I have a lot of friends that are diehard. I almost said Skins fans, but what are they now? Team fans. They're football fans. I don't know. They're teammates. Oh, that's just awful. Don't ever. No.
That's just bad. That's just bad.
But anyway, I need to get one of them on here to talk about the future because, what do you do if you're the team? That sounds so stupid. But what do you do? Do you draft a quarterback? So I don't know, man. I mean, they got him. I mean, I think you give him a chance. I mean, you got rid of Haskins.
Yeah.
And I think you got to.
I'm sure.
I think Alex Smith will retire. I don't think he's coming back.
No, he looks like a statue, dude. He is. Yeah.
It can't hurt.
But I think Heineke's proven.
And there's no downside, right? There's not like they're paying him, I'm sure, much. Even if they have to do a new it's might as well at least put him in a competition.
Pay him a 1 year, bring him on, let him compete with whoever you bring on. Yeah. I don't think they're in a position to draft a quarterback, but there's going to be some free agents out there. Right. Bring on a free agent, let Heineke compete, and see where it goes. So let's keep going with the recaps because I know all three of us are eager to get to the previews and preview the divisional game. So Baltimore Ravens beat the Tennessee Titans. Finally, Lamar Jackson gets the playoff monkey off his back. They won 20-13. I watched this game pretty closely. So here are some takeaways. We talked on the podcast last week, Will, and Chris, who was our guest, said that what happens if Tennessee gets up? The whole thing with Baltimore is they can't come back. They're not built to come back. They're built to get a lead and then just ball control, use that run game, use that defense to stifle their opponent. But what happened here? Lamar threw one of the worst interceptions I've seen in a while. It was just an awful lobby duck-looking thing. Tennessee got up early, 10-0. And so I'm like, oh, here we go again. I wanted to see Lamar play strong, and then nope, Tennessee gets up 10-0. But then Baltimore fought back. Lamar had that sick touchdown run, 3rd and 9, where he evades the sack and then just outruns the entire Titans defense. And they came back and they controlled. Tennessee only scored 13 points. They scored 10 right at the beginning, and they only got a field goal for the rest of the game. So credit goes to Lamar for bouncing, getting back up after that mistake and playing solid football. But most importantly, and Will, you've been on this bandwagon for a while, this Ravens defense is legit.
Yeah. Can I have another hot take? If I had too many hot takes in a row?
You have unlimited hot takes.
Here's my hot take. Derrick Henry
You've earned
is
it.
only good against crappy run defenses. There's my hot take. I think he's extreme.
So 2,000 yards rushing
against twice the Texans, right?
Defenses.
The Jaguars.
Fair. He got I think almost 500 total yards against the Texans.
I mean, bro, you see his stiff arms and stuff. Somebody correct me. Like, we've had enough just 5-star reviews about your podcast is nice. No, go in. I want you to argue with me. We have Twitter comments. Go in there and argue.
Still leave a 5-star, but then
still
argue.
Leave the 5 stars. Then argue.
Good conversation.
It's like when it's Derrick Henry week, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you go into the game and you're like, who are they? The Titans are playing the Jaguars. Derrick Henry week, and he gets 400 yards and 17 touchdowns, right? But going into this game, I knew it. I'm like, nah, it's Baltimore. Like, he's not going to run on Baltimore. He's not a pass catching running back. He's got the highlight reel stiff arms. He's good for those. He can throw people, but I don't know, man. They got to have something else, and they got AJ Brown. But it feels like the Titans are just missing something, and I can't really put my finger on it. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the craziest thing is that we saw the Titans beat the Ravens, in the playoffs last year, surprisingly get as far as they did to the championship game. But and that was solely, we talk about Henry, we talk about how good Tannehill's been, but that was because of their defense, right? The Titans defense was legit. What happened? That was a quick, people are talking about, like you just said, Will, Henry, and when not, you got AJ Brown blowing up. Tannehill is, very still, I feel like, underrated in regards to what he's been doing, especially compared to what he's done in the past. But it's not the point. The point is they lost that game. They've lost a lot of games in the past. The ones that they've lost, their defense has failed them. And that's, and that's all around kind of a nuts thing. And you're absolutely right. Well, that Ravens defense has been there. You talk about Henry, and I obviously I like the hot take. I'm not sure. We have to go back and look, but but
he's the 8th running back in NFL history to get 2,000 yards.
I don't care.
Yeah,
they give him 47 carries a game.
But yeah,
they do.
But
he had 370 carries.
And he has done it against the Ravens, right? He did it against the Ravens last year in the championship or in the playoffs, and then he did it
earlier
crazy,
this
but
year.
He got that overtime touchdown. So I know the Ravens were ready to be like, nah, like you said, they're ready to take your hot take. They were like, look, man, we're a good defense. You can't be doing this against us.
Because the Ravens, their whole motivation is what Will Southard thinks. They put all his comments on the bulletin board. But yeah, kudos to Lamar. I'm glad he got that off his back. We can get rid of he's just a regular season quarterback. No, he has now won a playoff game, and we will talk about him more in the preview when we go talk about them playing the Bills. So second to last game. This is the game we can talk about the quickest. The New Orleans Saints 21, Chicago Bears 9. Everybody expected that. I'd say the most interesting thing about this game is that it was broadcast simultaneously on CBS
and there was an
Nickelodeon.
F-bomb on Nickelodeon.
that was.
You didn't hear that?
That I didn't know.
Yeah. So they called.
Dude, I did not want to watch the Nickelodeon broadcast.
So they called Cordero. They called him, I think, for running out of bounds, And he walks up to the ref and like, they're putting slime and like whatever. It's Nickelodeon, right? The announcers are horrible, but whatever. They're trying to get kids involved in sports.
I heard there was like a 15-year-old doing color
and he goes,
analysis.
He looks at the camera, he looks and he goes, "What the?" And boom. And like it's
he's like,
wow, on Nickelodeon.
He's like close enough where the ref's mic can hear it.
Oh,
yeah,
it
was really funny. F-bomb on Nickelodeon. So,
it was.
So yeah, I mean that's the only interesting thing. Oh, and Trubisky was named Nickelodeon Valuable Player, MVP.
Yay!
And he put it on his Wikipedia.
Why?
And he put it on his...
Who votes on this? The 7-year-olds out there? I don't.
He put it on his Wikipedia page too, like, or they, I don't know, whoever.
Did he really?
He's got like got like Pro Bowl alternative and then like MVP for 2021.
Well, I mean, there's not a lot of accolades if you're Mitch Trubisky at this point. He might not even be on the Bears next year. That's a whole nother conversation. Right. But at least he's got MVP. Sure. Congratulations. So yeah, that's all that needs to be said about this game. It was not a particularly exciting game. I will say one last thing. That Jimmy Graham touchdown, one-handed,
and then when he just runs out of the tunnel,
and then he literally
like, F it,
just keeps going. He's like, I'm done. I got my one hit. He came back to New Orleans. Obviously, he had a long-time Saint. So to get that one-handed touchdown and then just be like, peace.
Such a Jimmy
He's
Graham
out?
Move,
you think he's done?
Such a boss move.
I
don't know. I don't want to speculate on any Bears moves.
I hope so.
Right now. We'll have a separate Bears podcast. So let's get to the most exciting game for a number of reasons in Wildcard Weekend. The Cleveland Browns.
28
their first playoff
points.
game in
first quarter points.
First playoff game since 2002. First playoff victory. That's right. They won. They beat their big brother Pittsburgh Steelers. First playoff victory since 1994. Will, who was the coach of the Cleveland Browns for their last playoff victory in 1994? Bill
the non-presidential Medal Freedom of Award winner.
The one who doesn't go with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, Bill Belichick, coached the Browns the last time they won a Super Bowl. That's crazy. So this game, obviously, as Will said, 28 points in the first quarter. I don't think it was the first play of the game, maybe the third play, but the first drive, Maurkice Pouncey shoots so he's a Pro Bowl center.
Went to Florida.
A formerly Pro Bowl quarterback. Shoots, University of Florida Gator. Shoots the snap like 17 yards over Big Ben's head, and the Browns score a touchdown. I'm on NFL Twitter. Browns fans are like, did this good luck for us? Did this happen? Are they going to overturn it somehow? They just couldn't believe their eyes. And then Big Ben goes and throws a couple interceptions before you know it. And Cleveland, Kareem Hunt is like running over Steelers players to get into the end zone on that first rushing touchdown. And it's 28-0. And then the Steelers did mount a comeback. Cleveland was playing really soft defense. But at the end, the Browns won. And everybody except Steelers fans
Baker
are really
Mayfield
happy.
met one of his offensive linemen before the game. Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
I did.
He's like, So one of them, I think it was Michael Dunn.
So he must have been replacing.
Yeah,
Bitonio,
Michael Dunn replaced Bitonio. Yeah. Michael Dunn got like hurt, I think, and they had to bring in like this practice squad dude that Baker Mayfield literally met before the game. He was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" I'm like, "Oh, Baker."
Hey, I'm the guy from the Progressive commercials. This is my house.
And to be honest, the beginning of that game looked. I mean, like hindsight after watching it, it reminded me of the Super Bowl when Peyton Manning with the Broncos, that first one when they got killed. Yes. It was that first opening snap, and then it just was downhill from there. I mean, granted, that was more of a defensive effort. I mean, you got to give Browns credit. I mean, I feel like the Browns showed up to play with all this. I mean, they kept saying the Broncos they hadn't practiced in like 3 weeks, really, like in a general sense. The coach obviously wasn't there, even though he definitely laid his footprint on all of the the plays and everything. And Kevin Stefanski, arguably coach of the year, if not in the running. But the Browns came to play and the Steelers did not. I mean, I've never been more surprised by I'm with you guys, and obviously everyone excited for the Browns and everything, but a Mike Tomlin team, I don't know that I've seen. Like, it just seemed like they're busy making TikToks and talking a lot of trash
even after the game.
Sure, but I know
Chase he was like, "Oh, they're gonna get clapped." Yeah, I mean they are.
Now. I mean,
they are.
Probably, but come on, don't be a sore loser, dude.
That's
like really.
Yeah, it's.
What did you guys think? Will, I want your opinion. What were your thoughts of seeing Big Ben crying on the sidelines?
I mean,
after the game, towards the end
almost felt bad for him. I like that much, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. I don't. The city of Pittsburgh, just stop it. You've won enough. Like, I'm sorry. Don't feel bad.
You were
for
11-0.
Was that his last game? Was that his last game?
I think so.
He
said to Pouncey, I came back for you. I wanted to do this for you. Like, I didn't realize they were that close, but
I didn't either.
But hey, I don't see it. Like Juju went from like NFL darling to like uber meme like overnight. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
he did it to himself though. I mean, that's.
I don't know what the what. See, here's one thing I don't know. Like, what is this Corvette thing? Do you know what that is? Like, I know it's how people make fun of him, but like, where does it come from?
It's the dance he does. I think it's the dance he does on something to do with
is it
TikTok.
Okay.
He always when he dances on their look. I think. I mean, there's like I know it's like I've seen some of the TikToks like through SportsCenter and stuff. He does this car move on the logos of all those teams, and that obviously that's.
If you could stand up and demonstrate that would be good.
Yeah, right.
Yes, please. On video.
That's why you got video for the.
And Brian, if you could go ahead and do the gritty, that'd be that'd be great.
If I knew what the gritty was, man, I don't
know. Who did that? There was some white guy. I think it was Kirk Cousins doing the gritty.
Oh, I don't want to do any dance that Kirk Cousins does because I don't want to have that kind of association.
Fair enough.
But yeah, this was an awesome game. It was so much fun. If you're a Steelers fan, I don't care. You guys have been successful for decades. Deal with it. Good for you, Browns fans. Good for you getting your first playoff victory in 26 years. Enjoy it while it lasts because you play the Chiefs next. But you know what? Just enjoy this week. I think I even put on Twitter, Browns fans, savor this moment. Don't even think about who you're playing next because it will only.
We got to go to
the
the previews because
Let's go to the previews. Let's jump right into these. That's a good segue point. So we are going to start, Bobby, with your Green Bay Packers, number 1 seed. So they had the bye, the only team to have a bye in the NFC this year, hosting the 6th seed Los Angeles Rams. What's your take on this game?
Yeah, I mean, number 1 scoring offense versus number 1 scoring defense. I mean, that's what these games are about, right? I mean, that's what makes these exciting. I mean, I as a Packers fan, I think people are like, oh, it's the Brady Breeze thing, and that's the game in the side. But for like 1 second, I was like, when they came out with the schedule, I was like, they put the number 1 seed Packers at the 4:30 Saturday game, like what? And then I was like, never mind, I get it, Breeze, Brady, they're both gonna probably die on the field at the end of the
Calm down.
But did you guys?
Did you see Tom Brady? Tom Brady put on Twitter like he's got a beard and like Breeze is like balding and they look like they're in their 60s. That was brilliant. Like, good for you, Tom.
And it says like the History Channel's like first NFL.
Yeah, the History Channel. I'll give Tom kudos for that one. Will, there you go.
Thanks. But I mean, honestly, I don't care how many ribs Aaron Donald has working. I mean, I'm still nervous. I mean, he's a guy we lost. Bakhtiari, again, a big effort. I'm confident with our line and the way that Rodgers is playing, but even in a season where he's gone absolutely crazy, like we talked about earlier, I still remember that Niners game. This is a similar team, except for their offense is a lot weaker. And I think that's what bodes well for us. I don't care if Goff or Wofford play. Like the inconsistencies that they show as far as the passing game is what matters. I mean, for me. Like you mentioned, Brian, Akers is could be the game changer unless we can slow him down. So I think if we focus on that, I mean, I don't know if it's stacking the box or what it is, but if we can make sure we try to take the run out early, I mean, Goff played fine in that game, right? He completed like 9 passes or something. I mean, he did what he needed to do, but their defense did it. I'm not.
He said he completed 9 passes.
Yeah,
he did fine.
He did fine. I mean,
no.
I'm not as concerned. I mean, the number 1. I mean, I know there's Ramsey, shut out DK, but. We use Devontae Adams a lot differently than DK. I mean, Devontae Adams plays in a slot a lot when he needs to get up. Right. Want to get him open. And even if he gets stopped.
And DK, as great as he's been, is not on Devontae Adams.
Exactly. Level, as great as Russell Wilson has been in the first 8 weeks, I don't see Aaron Rodgers make stuff happen with this with the random collection.
I mean, so I'd like to. So if not, so how does Green Bay move the ball on the Rams? Like, let's assume Aaron Donald is not like broken, right? Let's assume he's normal.
He's not. So the X-rays came back negative,
which is a weird thing for an X-ray to come back. Like, you know what I mean? Like, look at my ribs.
Sounds bad.
Negative. Like, what?
They're there. They're still there.
You have ribs. We have confirmed.
They're negative, but you're good.
Is it a Lazard game? Like, Lazard is very good. Like, I think very highly of Lazard, as does Aaron Rodgers. Is it a Tunyon game? Is it a Jamal Williams receiving back game? Like, I don't know. What do you think? How do you think they move the ball?
I see it more as like, yeah, like, I mean, more of like maybe some bubble screens, some short outs. I mean, I think they're going to find a way to get Devontae Adams the ball. I think there was like one game he was shut down in, and it was against I know you're not a Bucks fan, but it was against, Brady and that Bucks defense. And that was the game after he returned from injury. It was, it was the first time we really had, I think it might have been the first loss we've had, but, I don't think they're not going to be able to get the ball in Devontae Adams' hands because I think Ramsey is more likely to stay on the side that he's used to than really shadow Devontae Adams. I mean, at least, obviously I'm hoping, but yeah, like I said earlier, than 2.5 games that Devontae Adams did not play in. I know the Rams defense is a different breed than any of the ones we played against, but like, I mean, we scored like I think we averaged 35 points a game this season. So I mean, they found ways. Tanyan had 5 touchdowns in that span. I mean, Lazard, MVS. I mean, somebody that I'm actually excited about. I don't know if it's anything's gonna happen for, but they got Tavon Austin, which is obviously I know like he was washed up Rams guy, but he's been a couple
always overhyped.
He's been in a lot of Tavon Austin is going to get precisely no catches for no yards this weekend. I want you to know that.
Yeah, but
he'll get like a
handoff or some bullshit.
What I was gonna say was he's been in the couple plays he's been in on because like
that's what you can say for Tavon Austin. He's been in football games.
He's been on plays.
He's been pulling corners, like he's been doing a lot of motion behind Rodgers and things like that, which does leave, like you said, Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones. I think they'll start throwing in Dillon whether they can run the ball effectively or not, but to get the ball. So it might not be 40-yard dimes to Devontae Adams, but we watch. If you watch, think about the Rams. We talk about their defense, but what did they do the last 2 weeks of this besides the Cardinals game of the season? They lost to the Jets. They didn't even score a touchdown against Seattle that Week 16 game. I mean, it's not like these guys are playing this kind of football every week. Everybody is consistent. I mean, everyone on every side of the ball on that team is inconsistent in ways, and so I guess I'm banking on the consistency, which is what's making me pick my team.
Hot take. I have picked. No, this is not that hot of a take. I picked Green Bay to go all the way in the NFC.
I did see that. Yeah, you had KC against Green Bay. That's your Super Bowl pick. Let's go ahead and pick this game. So I think that the only way the Rams have a shot is through the run game and Cam Akers. Green Bay, yes, they've gotten better against the run, but if they're susceptible and their defense making a play, but I'm more confident, and they're not going to force turnovers to Rodgers as they did on Wilson. So I think they have to control the clock on the ground, keep the ball out of Green Bay's hands as much as possible. Green Bay is susceptible to the run. That being said, all you have to do, knowing that the 2 quarterbacks they're going up against are just not Wolford's coming off a concussion, Goff has a messed up thumb, just key on the run game, stack the box, take away Akers, and just make those quarterbacks beat you.
Call on the ghost of Clay Matthews.
I'm going to pick Green Bay in this. I'm going to pick the Packers in this. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be closer than I think people are planning it out to be. Maybe that's me being just, I hope my team wins. But, I just think because of the things you said, I mean, we are susceptible to run a decent amount. But, yeah, I hope, I think we're going to pull it out.
Well, I see this like the Packers-Bears game in Week 17. It wasn't a blowout, but Green Bay had control the whole game.
Of the 4 games, this is going to be the game that I don't watch. I'm just going to tell you. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, same. I'll watch all of them, but I'll be least interested in this game in all likelihood. Let's go to the next game. Baltimore, number 5 seed, coming off that victory against the Titans, traveling to Buffalo. So, Will, what are your takes on this game?
Baltimore is Buffalo's kryptonite. Their defense is playing really well. I mean, Lamar is putting it together. I mean, I see it. I see a path for Buffalo. I mean, I think they can do it. I think if they do it, if they do it, it's going to be because Lamar laid a Browns in the game, which he's normally, which he's done before. And I make jokes, but what I mean is Lamar's going to have to play well. If Lamar does not play well, they're not going to win. But the thing is that Buffalo is, susceptible to the run. And I think that's what Baltimore's going to do. They're going to line up and I think it's going to be a heavy Dobbins game, a heavy Lamar run game, a heavy Gus Edwards game. Mark Ingram is not a thing anymore apparently on the Ravens.
Yeah, he's been inactive. They don't even have him on the roster.
He got canceled. I don't know. Maybe he wore a MAGA hat to the practice one day or something, and they're just like, "Well, you're done."
Something tells me Mark Ingram.
He probably didn't. But you know what I'm saying. So like Buffalo's, you can run the ball in Buffalo. Buffalo can get dumb with the ball. Baltimore has a great defense. So I think the key to success is keeping it on the ground. But if they come out and have a dumb game plan and play bad, I absolutely think Buffalo can take it. I just don't think they will.
Yeah, I'm. This was the hardest one for me to pick. I think, in terms of a couple weeks ago watching Buffalo play. I mean, Buffalo, the only loss they've had in like the last 10 weeks, I think, was that Hail Murray, right? I mean, they've won every other game and they've won most of them pretty easily,
such a good play.
So,
so good.
That one guy.
I believe that was our first podcast. Was after that game.
Nice. But Josh Allen he's a monster. He's been a monster. You did talk about some of his fallbacks and stuff, and like you said, if he does any type of thing like he did at the end of that game, at any point in this game, the Ravens are already going to try to force things like that, but they're definitely going to take advantage of that. But I do think the Ravens have the slight edge, and again, 100% will because of that Bills run defense. It's the thing that makes me hesitant is because if the Bills get up 14-0 quick, which they could very easily. I mean, you watch the Titans do it. I don't think any of us think the Titans are as good as the Bills are on offense or in either side of the ball. But it's not going to be as easy for Lamar Jackson. He's going to have to throw the ball a little bit, right? I mean, especially if they win and they have to play Kansas City, obviously the week after. But that's getting ahead of myself. But last year he led the league in passing touchdowns. This year he hasn't done as much. But the difference is he's an X factor. I mean, in any game he's an X factor. If you watch the highlights, I mean, we watched the Titans game and we saw that. But you watch the defense they were playing against Lamar Jackson. They weren't playing that bad when he busted out that run. They weren't playing a bad scheme. I mean, they had the safety on top. I mean, it looked like it was written up, but it's Lamar Jackson. And like you said, Will, I think that run game is going to pound the clock. If Taylor did it, Hines even had like 75 or 80 yards. Granted, a lot of it was on a big run against them with the Colts in the early game last week. But, I think I'm going to give Ravens a slight edge too. And they're the one that's playing hot right now. And they're going behind, I'm going behind Harbaugh, that defense, and them being there before as well. So,
what I'm surprised.
I'm going to agree with both of you guys. And I thought I was going to be the only one picking the Ravens here. So it looks like we're kind of all in agreement here. But these are two teams that are both red hot. They're both playing peak football, which should make for a very entertaining game. But I think the difference is actually that Baltimore defense. Buffalo's defense has been a weakness at points this season. That they certainly allowed the Colts, who are a steady offense, but by no means are a lighted up offense. They had over 400 total yards, and they just marched up and down the field against Buffalo. So Baltimore is playing elite offense and elite defense. Buffalo playing elite offense and average defense. I think that makes the difference. I think they get to Allen, make him fumble once or twice, make him make a bad decision. I'm going to pick.
I'll tell you, I think that I think if there's going to be a team that knocks off Kansas City, because I mean, let's be honest, that's who we're talking about. If there's going to be a team that knocks off Kansas City, and you got to put it between Baltimore and Buffalo, it's got to be. It's got to be Baltimore, right? So you hope.
Yeah, I
completely
agree
that it's Baltimore, because I think that. Let's be honest. I mean, we're talking about a Kansas City Super Bowl run this year anyway, right? Like, in it.
So let's jump into that game. Let's go ahead and pick the Kansas City game because it's a feel-good story with the Browns. So the 6th seed Cleveland Browns coming off that ridiculously high from beating Pittsburgh in the playoffs. I don't think they would have felt better beating anyone else than beating Pittsburgh, being a division rival, being the kind of the underdog to Pittsburgh for multiple decades. And then, of course, they put that on top. But now they have to face the Kansas City Chiefs, coming off a week's rest. Playoff Andy Reid, playoff Patrick Mahomes. Cleveland, there's no shame in just
go stupid.
One of the greatest.
Just go stupid. Just do whatever, man.
Go for it.
And that's what we said about the freaking the Steelers, though. That's what we said. Just go dumb, But they didn't have to, because
they didn't have to because they got such a big lead early.
Man.
But here's the question I'll pose: are either of you picking the Browns here?
With my heart? With my
no?
head?
Yeah, you go.
Not with your heart. What would you say? No emotional hedges. Which, by the way, you told me I was doing an emotional hedge by picking the Browns, and I was right.
What are the current Vegas odds?
I have not looked up the lines on these, so I'm not sure.
Let me look it up actually before, because I think It depends. It really depends on what kind of lines you can get on this game.
I say the only thing that I know there's always that narrative of resting your players in week 17, which obviously super screwed over the Ravens, or not screwed over, but it seemed to have played an effect on the Ravens last year when resting players in week 17 coming in and playing the Titans. But the Titans aren't the Browns. I mean, let's be honest. But I think the interesting thing about that though is that I read on Twitter that in the Reid Mahomes era, it's like after the 6 total games they've had after a bye in their tenure together, including the week before the Super Bowl. 31 points was the least they've scored, and I think it was like 55 or something. They scored like twice. I mean, so I don't think it's one of those things. Like, I mean, not that I don't think it would matter. I mean, if they were playing the Ravens now, or if they were playing Buffalo now, I mean, I still don't think. But love the narrative. But and I think, like I said, if we'll play another scenario, Brian, if there's a way that the Browns could do that, I think because we're all in agreement that they probably not going to be able to. It's going to be exactly what got them there. It's that run game and that offensive line, which is amazing. I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to slow the Chiefs down, so they got to keep the ball, and they got just like you said with the Rams, they got to keep the ball, and they got to do what they're the best at, one of the best at in the league, and to keep up with them. And the Chiefs defense is okay. I mean, like you said, it's better than Buffalo's, I think, but it's definitely. I mean, they could run on them, but if Mahomes gets 2 touchdowns in the first 5 minutes, it's not going to matter.
That's the thing. Exactly. It's the biggest weakness of all the different position groups in this game on both sides of the ball is the Cleveland secondary.
Right.
I mean, you look at even with that big lead and Big Ben being not the old Big Ben of old, he was still able to make passes, rack up over 500 yards passing against this defense. And now you get Patrick Mahomes coming off rest with Tyreek Hill getting a chance to heal up, Travis Kelce being Travis Kelce. If you want actual analysis, besides the fact I would have picked the Chiefs anyway, but if you want to actually get analysis, that Cleveland secondary against this Kansas City Chiefs passing offense.
But
just be happy.
See, here's the so here looking at the lines. Green Bay is favored over the Rams by 6.5. Over and under that game is 45.5. The Bills are favored over the Ravens by 2.
And one other thing I read about the Bills Ravens, it's going to be really bad weather there, so that is also going to put a lot of effect with the running game.
Over under 50.
But that benefits Baltimore.
Exactly.
50.5.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay, New Orleans, which we haven't talked about yet. The Saints are favored by 3, which if you've watched any of the prior 2 games, you want to hammer the shit out of that. You want to hammer that. You want to play that. That's smart.
I can't edit the video.
It's a smart play. 51.5. Highest scoring game of the week. Cleveland and Kansas City. 56.5 over under. Kansas City favored by 10. But here's the thing.
10. Wow, double-digit divisional round.
Here's the thing. Nick Chubb is arguably one of the best pure running backs in the league.
I don't think it's arguably.
I mean, his vision is just incredible. Yeah. And it's really sad when you look at what the Browns got versus what the Patriots got when they split that Georgia backfield. Like the Patriots got cross-eyed Sony Michel, and the Browns got Nick Chubb, who is amazing. Like, it's just sad. But anyway, Kansas City can be beat on the ground. Like they really can. So I think if the Browns just take that 1-2 punch of Hunt and, I mean, like, their offensive line, I think it completely depends on COVID health. Like the Browns have been kind of ravaged, and they got a torn up offensive line. If they get their offensive line somewhat healthy and they can go in there and just chunk the ball on the ground, and they can maybe just 1 or 2 times prevent the Chiefs from scoring, they got a shot. But
or like score.
Well, any
like,
team has a shot on any given.
Yeah. we just saw that happen, right? I mean, yeah.
So anything can happen, man.
Technically, anything can happen. And yes, if there is a path for the Browns, it's going to be just run the crap out of Nick Chubb and put Kareem Hunt in there as a nice 1-2 punch. But they're not going to be able to slow down. Stop Mahomes.
I'm going to pick the Browns. So,
let's go on.
I'm picking the Browns.
Look at you. There you go. Now that's a bold pick.
Let's do this.
Awesome.
I like it.
That's why we do this show. So let's talk about the final game, because I do want to hear from Bobby on his unique fantasy football perspective. So the last game, you already alluded to it, Will, is the number 5 seed Tampa Bay Bucks coming off their victory in the wildcard game facing the number 2 New Orleans Saints. So the History Channel, Battle of the Aging Quarterbacks. Clearly the 2 quarterbacks are at different levels physically, because Brady honestly still looks like vintage Brady. He's throwing the deep ball well again. He's got that was one of our critiques earlier in the year, as he wasn't hitting the deep ball. He's got that connection with Antonio Brown. That's looking scary. Breeze has looked efficient, but he is not the same old Breeze. But they've got Alvin Kamara. Michael Thomas is finally healthy again, and he scored a touchdown against Chicago. I know New Orleans is favored. I think that New Orleans defense is better than the Bucs defense. If you're putting apples to apples, I think this will be an entertaining game, but I think the Saints overall are a better team, and I'm going to pick New Orleans in this one.
Oh man, I don't want to, but it's a different team, man. It's a different Bucs team. You know, like it's I don't know. No, Bucs. They got Antonio Brown. I don't think it's going to be the same thing where just Brady just can't move the ball anymore. I
agree. I do think they'll score points. As good as New Orleans defense is, I don't think this is going to be where the Bucs just look lost like they did a few times this season. No, Tampa Bay's offense is firing on all cylinders. They went up and down the field against that tough Washington defense. So I agree. I just think New Orleans will make more plays.
Maybe. I'm not picking them though.
Bobby?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with you, Brian. I mean, as much as I feel like every time you're like, oh no, Brady can't do it. He just he does it every time. But I think this isn't about the quarterbacks as much as it's gonna be, in all the stories leading up to it, because again we keep talking about the last 4 games the Bucs played. It was Vikings, which is probably the best competition, 2 Falcons games and a Lions game. I mean that's what you're talking about. I mean they're going off hot, but before that you watch them in prime time. Brady looked bad against the Rams, and that was 6 weeks ago now. He looked good. Obviously, he was fine. He was good, and he was, Brady's type against the Washington football team. But think about it. The Washington football team, the only thing that they were there for was because of their defense, and they didn't do that well. And they still came that close because of our boy Heineke.
No
so
offense.
now we're
they have no defense.
What's that?
I said Tampa has no defense.
And so that I think is going
to. They have a good run defense, but they don't have.
And that's the big thing to me. I think they're going to. I mean, Kamara was quieter against the Bears, but it didn't matter. I mean, that was the different game. I think they're going to find a way to. It's again, Deontay Harris. Where that guy had 8 catches in that game. I mean, they're going to find. That's a great quarterback to do. That's what Brady's done for years on the Patriots. Now he has all the weapons. I mean, the thing, if it becomes a shootout, and that's really what it turns into, you're absolutely right. AB is going to be. He's going to be slotted against that Gardner-Webb guy who keeps getting punched. As long as
a Florida guy, by the way.
As long as AB keeps his cool, and doesn't stay with that guy, then. But I kind of think the same thing in regards to the defenses, Brian. And that's again really tough one, and I think it easily see going either way. But could be the last game. If Breeze loses, Breeze plays, and it easily could be the last time these two guys play.
It's definitely going to be Breeze last game if he loses.
Yeah.
If he loses, yes.
Right. So
yeah, agreed. So let's before we wrap up, I do want to hear from Bobby about your you teach fantasy football to kids, which is that you're a hero, right? That our children, the future generations, need to learn how to play fantasy football. But tell me what that looks like.
Yeah.
Tell me what do you do? Obviously online classes these days.
Right.
How did you get into that?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
So it's just like an online marketplace I teach where basically it's you can get accepted to teach here, and I have a background in the sciences actually, so I teach other courses too. But that's been my bigger one now, especially in the middle of the football season. But what it is, it's kind of like if you're actually in say you're in middle school, that's generally the age I would teach in. You're staying after school to take a photography club or something. I mean, I don't even know what you do there. You go take pictures and you talk about them and you need to describe the art behind them. That's kind of what this is. It's like this guy. Did I describe that well for photography club? But this is kind of what this is. It's like it's just based on fantasy football. I'm getting the kids together, engaging in conversation, interacting. Even when they disagree, but building confidence in their thoughts. But with research, not just yelling out opinions and saying stuff, because obviously 11-year-olds who are obsessed with one person are going to be like, no, you should start this person and yada yada yada. But handling situations that are highly opinionated thoughts usually, but still have a good time with it. Arguably skills that you probably talk about a lot on your political part of the podcast. But along with that, it's learning and deciphering fantasy football strategy throughout the season, not just talking about I'm not sitting here talking for 45 minutes making kids listen to me talk about it. I obviously am giving my input, but I'm more guiding the conversation to see, okay, Brady's great, but what's the matchup he has this week? Do you think he's still going to be, top 5, QB in fantasy this week? So it's a lot about that. And, I mean, we all in our own different leagues and stuff like that, so that way they can build on, strengths of like doing things differently when it comes to fantasy instead of just picking DK Metcalf and putting him in your lineup every week. It's
which is not a bad strategy, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, right.
It's pretty good strategy.
As long as he's
you're
not
like,
playing
listen,
Ramsey.
you need to know what a left patella ligament strain means. That's 3 to 4 weeks minimum. Like you need to be picking somebody else up.
Or I guess more like Tyler Lockett. How's that? That's a better example.
Yeah.
but it's kind of like that. So and I got into that. I've always been I've been an educator and done stuff in the sciences, like I mentioned before. But I also, like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, I'm a writer and analyst for Last Word on Sports too. So I've just been in depth, and I figured it would be cool to kind of get kids kind of engaging in a way when they're already interested in this, and get them to see different sides of this too. So it's it's kind of a fun.
So do their parents sign them up? Like, what is the attendance like? Do you get a lot of kids in these classes?
Yeah, I have it kind of limited just for the class because it's very, very conversation, right? It's not like we have homework assignments, and it's not like I'm sitting there lecturing. It's just what I'm just trying to. I mean, a lot of times they'll be like,
draft me a lineup and get it to me by tomorrow morning.
A lot of times they're like, Bobby, like what do you who should I get? I'm like, no, ask the group. I want everybody to put their input, and then I'll throw mine in at the end. A lot of times a lot of times it's split, or a lot of times I could be different, or I could be exactly the same. But it's more, I kind of keep them smaller, like so that way everybody can have a chance to talk. And even if there's quieter kids, it still gives I can then guide the conversation, and be like, what do you think, Brian? Like, is that something that's in your mind? Because if they're in it, it's very obvious they're interested in talking. But obviously, especially through online, as anybody with kids knows, or anybody in this day and age, is it's different to get kids engaged throughout this kind of situation too. But especially with something as fun as football and fantasy football that they already are experiencing anyway.
Well, if we have listeners who either have kids or if they want to learn more about fantasy football, why don't you tell us the name? Where can they go? Where can they find these classes?
Absolutely. So it's called OutSchool. So OUT school. It's basically kind of, we used to be made for homeschooling kind of overall, because that's kind of the alternative to schooling is outschooling. But there's all kinds of, there's like any class you could think of across them, like Harry Potter and all kind. It's great for any kid really, for and I obviously don't teach that stuff, but I teach some science classes, and I also teach the fantasy football club is my big class. So you can just go on there and search Bobby Duke in there, or search for fantasy football on one of the top ones on there too, and it'd be fun to.
Which is the most like basketball coach name of like any name that we've had on the podcast so far.
Bobby Duke,
Coach Bobby Duke.
Legendary Coach Bobby Duke.
Anyway, so one time. Funny story was when I was at UF, I really wanted like an easy elective, right? Like I wanted something that just was going to be kind of face roll, because I had some pretty hard classes. So I look on the schedule for like fall, and one of the options was coaching offensive football. And I'm like, that sounds fun. Let me do that. Right. That can't be hard. Bro. So like it was, they have these assistants that help out with the team, right? And these are like graduate students that are like looking to make it in coaching and things like that, right? So they put one of these tryhards to teach this class, and he made it his mission in life to make this like the most serious, hardest class like he could possibly do. So like our final exam was to develop an offense for a high school that could be implemented like immediately, like a whole offense, bro. Like all the concepts. We had to draft. We had to draft 20 passes and 20 runs drawn up against every conceivable defensive front, like 4-3 over, 4-3 under, 4-3 double eagle, 3-4, 5-2. Cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 0, all that. Like every play diagrammed against all those fronts. That took me like. It took me like a week of just straight work, and I'm like looking at my like physics classes, like that was easier than this. Like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? But so yeah.
Did you put it in a little green notebook like the from Waterboy, the special notebook of plays?
I didn't.
Is there a will? Where does this playbook exist? Is there some high school
play,
that like stole
my
your
trick
offense?
play was a hook and ladder. I had that in there because I've never actually seen. Have you ever actually seen a hook and ladder run in the NFL? Other than like on like a kickoff, or like.
As a matter of fact, I have. The Miami Dolphins beat.
Oh
the
no, you're not talking about the Gronk. No, that's the last play of the game. That doesn't count. I'm talking about like
that. It's still a hook and ladder.
I know, but I'm talking about like in the actual game.
You gave me an opportunity to bring up a chance with the Dolphins.
Look, we had Gronkowski. We had Gronkowski as a defensive back. That doesn't count.
Whose fault is that? Why would Belichick put Gronkowski?
I don't know,
back?
but he was very slow, and he did not do that well.
Was.
Patriots always lose in Miami. It's like a foregone freaking conclusion. Yes. It's really sad.
Yeah, especially in like December when it's the second time they play.
They don't go down there and get heat exhaustion. I moved to Orlando last week or like last month, and we went to the beach on New Year's Day. We went to the beach. It was like 80 degrees. It was the best thing ever.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm in Northern California. I went to the beach this past weekend. It was gorgeous.
Is that open?
Bobby, did you go to the beach? Apparently we're all going to the beach.
Bobby Duke does not go to the beach.
Bobby Duke, don't do the beach.
Just write my script.
Nice. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. Bobby, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, talking about your Packers, sharing your very unique fantasy school. I'm certainly going to look it up and recommend all our listeners check that out. It's not just for kids. Maybe there is. I don't know. Maybe there's an age limit. Maybe I'm talking about the wrong thing. I'm sure Bobby will teach you.
Yeah, it is for kids, this one. But yeah, I'm happy for any other.
Sign your kid up and then like sneak over his shoulder and just kind of watch what's going on. Will, thanks as always. Will is going to stick around for the politics chat, and we'll have a separate guest for that. Please, as always, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to write bad things about Will and disagree with all his hot takes, more than welcome. Just put the 5 stars in there first. I do want to go ahead and mention, I've mentioned in the past that we're obviously on YouTube now. This video's on YouTube, so thank you so much for watching. I think it was somewhat of a success that we're on camera, but we're also we're on Instagram now. We have a Facebook page. I'm definitely getting really involved in Twitter. If you want to reach out to us on Twitter, the tag is official PP pod. So that's 3 P's. Reach out to us on Twitter.
You
and
plug your personal one too.
Email. No, you don't want to know my personal one. No, this is all about the podcast. Go to Will's personal one.
At your name.
Crazy stuff.
like there's not a lot to think about. It's just like
that's true.
At your name.
You can find me. Go to the official PP pod.
Why do you do anything if not for personal clout?
Now that I'm saying that out loud, PP pod.
Yeah, it's the PP pod.
I might have
the
to change
triple P odd.
PP pod. Welcome to the PP pod. I'm going to use that to wrap up. Thank you so much for everybody who's listening. If you're interested in sticking around for the politics, we'll drop that in a couple days. Enjoy the games this weekend, guys.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.